Hey guys, welcome to my first January check-in. It's my monthly budget check-in. I'm going to tell you how much I've spent and what my progress has been on my low buy no buy year. If you don't know what my low buy no buy year is, I will link my introduction video in the description below. But essentially, I'm trying not to spend money in 2019. And I have been so surprised with what I found out when I've been doing like my budgets. And I've got my notes over here, very messy, but I will go through what I have been up to. So initially, well, I'm still doing this actually, I set up a spreadsheet, but the spreadsheet has changed over the month. So initially I had the date and what I was spending my money on, and I'll put an example on the screen. So it was every day, like 1st of January, I've spent, I don't know, £15 on petrol, or 5th of January, I've spent £2.50 on lunch, etc, etc. And then I saw that when I tried to kind of tally up how much I was spending in the middle of the month, or like 2/3 of the way through the month, I realized that it was kind of hard to categorize different things. Lunch is one separate thing, petrol is another separate thing, groceries is another separate thing, experiences is another separate thing. So I changed my spreadsheet, and now I have a row across the top which categorizes everything into different categories, essentially, like so experiences, lunch, groceries, gifts, exceptionals, and then on the side I have the dates. The first thing I've realized is that it costs a lot of money to live, because most of my budget has gone on unavoidable expenses. So bills, groceries and travel. By bills I mean things that I definitely cannot compromise on. Well, I guess I could, like I could cut my cable bill, but that would not only make me suffer, but it would make my entire family suffer, and I'm not going to do that. My parents watch TV, I'm going to keep that. And then I had laser eye treatment, and I paid that off every month, and I will only stop paying that into next year, and that's almost like £167 a month. Groceries, I didn't spend that much. I only spent like £40. The groceries were just for me and Andrew when we went shopping, and actually from those £40 we only managed to make, I think, maybe 4 meals. So tenner a meal. Now I don't know how good that is. By tenner a meal I mean for the both of us, so I guess that's £5 per meal, which isn't too bad, I guess. We're going between two places at the moment, so we're going between my house and Andrew's house. His lease is up midway through the year, and then I think I will look into budgeting and how much it starts costing us. Sorry if I keep looking down, I'm just looking at my notes. And travel has cost me £163.50, so that's essentially travel in London. It's super expensive. It's really difficult to spend that kind of money on travel, and I do think like all Londoners really just hate that, and I don't think we get value for money. I do think the tubes are great. I don't think the trains are great. I have looked into trying to reduce it down to just do a smaller zone, but I actually don't live in a smaller zone, so I'd have to take the bus and it would take an extremely long time. It's just not practical. My non-negotiable costs have mounted up to £493.84. So that's kind of half of what I actually spent across the year, across the month. I wish I had spent that across the year, across the month. So I've spent slightly over £1,000 across the month, and now I will go into the other things that I've spent. So experiences, I've spent about £110. And I just realised one thing, that if I were to say no to experiences, I would start compromising my relationships and my social life. And the three things that I spent a lot of money on was I took my mum out for dinner and had been promising to take her out for months. So it's not that I take her out all the time. We actually don't spend as much time as we would both like together. So I took her out for dinner, and that came to about £27. Then I went to the cinema with a friend of mine, and I really like this friend. I don't see her very often, maybe once a month. She paid for the cinema ticket, so I paid for 3 rounds of drinks, and it is central London, and I didn't want to be kind of cheap and say, oh, can we go to a cheap bar and stuff, considering that cinema tickets are pretty expensive in London. So they were about, I think, £15 a pop, so I'm not going to be cheap in that way. Us going together and me paying for the drinks was about £35. And the next thing that I spent was on a pair of my ticket for going to a Bryan Adams concert in February. I'm not a big fan of concerts. I really don't like them, but my sister is a big fan and I'm going with her. She doesn't ask me very often. She does a lot for me, and I'm doing something in return for her, and if it cost me £48, so be it. But I think going forward I might just tell her like, oh, and she knows this already, that I don't really like concerts, so I really want to tone down who I go and see. I only go like two to three concerts a year, and yeah, as I said, I'm not a massive fan, so that's where that went. So for lunch, I gave myself a budget of £5 a day, which works out to roughly £100 a month, and I only ended up spending £50. And I compared with a couple of people at work who actually make their lunch. They bring salads and leftovers in the day after, and I asked them yesterday roughly how much do you spend, because I wanted to see if I could save more by starting to take my lunch into work. Now, I'm not really keen on starting to take my lunch into work. I do think it takes time. I don't like the fact that I don't know what's quite in the calorie content on my food. I'm quite into calorie counting, not because I'm trying to lose weight or anything, but I just like to have kind of a rough idea of what I'm consuming. And I feel like if I were to start making my lunches, obviously I could figure it out, but it would be a little bit more effort, and I don't really know that I want to make that kind of effort. Anyway, I told them that I spend like, well, actually I didn't tell them how much I spent because I wanted to find out how much they spent first, and they both said they spend about £2 to £3 a day, which is roughly what I spend. And when I told them that I spent £50, they said that that was actually pretty frugal and not too bad. So actually I spent £50, so I came in 50% under my budget, which I think was pretty good. I only hit like £5 once this in January. I've already hit £5 twice in February, so I'm trying to be a bit more sensible on the other days, but I'll let you know how I get on in my February check-in. The next thing I want to talk about is gifts. Gifts is something that I hadn't factored in, and it was Andrew's birthday, and I spent the bulk of my money, that category, on Andrew's kind of birthday. I spent over £100, actually considerably over £100 on his birthday, and while I don't resent that, I do think what I actually ended up spending it on wasn't great value for money. So we went to the top of the Shard, this really fancy restaurant. The food was amazing. Actually, the food was good. I think amazing might be too much. The view was amazing because you can see all of London, but for me it just felt really expensive, and I didn't really like the atmosphere. It was a bit like Keeping Up with the Joneses, and I do feel like before I started my low by no buy year that I was in danger of getting sucked in to this whole kind of culture of keeping up with the Joneses, and it's because of Instagram, it's because of shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and I think Keeping Up with the Kardashians is a great TV show. I have nothing against them, I think more power to them, but the fact is I cannot live like a Kardashian at all, and in fact I cannot live the lifestyle that a lot of my friends live, because they're on much more higher incomes. They are not pursuing their passions in terms of career. They've been very pragmatic in what they want to do. I work in the media, and that is notorious for not paying the best. This low buy no buy year has made me find a community that I really connect with, and that doesn't make me feel bad or ashamed of not having that kind of disposable income. And so when I did go to the Shard with Andrew, I felt a little bit like a little bit uncomfortable, because I felt like a lot of people who were there couldn't even afford to be there, and it was just all a ton of people just dressed up, and I just thought, you know what, I feel like I'm in a room of people faking it. Going forward, I'm going to spend that same kind of money on Andrew on his birthdays, but I will probably think a little bit more, research a little bit further ahead, and invest in a more worthwhile experience. The next thing I want to talk about is the holiday that we booked. Now we're going to Lanzarote in, I think it's next week. Oh my god, it's so soon. My father-in-law lives there, and our accommodation is paid for. We just needed to pay for the flights, and to be honest, a lot of our meals are paid for there because they just spoil us rotten. They are like the best in-laws ever. They really spoil us, and it's a fairly cheap holiday. I mean, the only way to kind of save more would be basically not to go on holiday, and I'll come to my conclusions at the end about how much money I could have saved. So we spent roughly under £200 for our flights to go to Lanzarote, and obviously there'll be spending money that I need to take out, but that will be in my February budget check-in. There's also exceptionals. Now exceptionals aren't things that are just like frivolous and fun. There's stuff like petrol. Petrol is exceptional for me because I don't drive. I can drive, I do have a license, but I don't have a car. Again, in London you don't really need a car. I spent £15 on petrol because Andrew was driving me about a lot, and I just felt bad that he was always paying for petrol. I spent £20 for thank you cards for our wedding because so many people gave us amazing gifts, and we need to send them thank you cards. And finally I spent £7 or like £8 on cough medicine. I really needed cough medicine. I have a terrible cough. I actually tried to tough it out because I was being like, oh, you know what, I'm not going to spend money. And Andrew was just like, don't be bloody ridiculous. You're sick. You need to buy cough medicine. So I did buy cough medicine. In conclusion, I have realized that if you want to get to absolute zero, you will need to sacrifice your social life and possibly your relationships, because I do think relationships are built on shared experiences. It costs money. These experiences in this city cost money. And also, if you want to miss out on holidays and stuff, you have to say no to enriching experiences. Now, I don't want to do that. I'm a little bit shocked at how much it costs to live, if I'm honest. So like there was £500 roughly for unavoidable costs and £500 for things that I thought were necessary. It just made me realize that, oh my gosh, what happens if I wasn't living at home? What if I wanted to have rent and stuff? I would have no way of saving any source of money. It made me realize why people are in the situation that they are now, that they can't get onto the property ladder, that they don't have a lot of savings. It's not because they're not being sensible, it's because this city is pricing them out of a sustainable lifestyle. I don't know what the solution is to it. It just shocked me. So that kind of wraps up my monthly check-in for January. Please let me know your thoughts. How do you think I did? So £500 or like £493 was on essential bills, and the rest of that £1,000 was just on holiday, exceptional costs. Let me know where you feel that you might have cut costs. Any suggestions, any tips, most welcome. February is a shorter month, so fingers crossed I spend less. But then already I'm anticipating months like April where I have 2 big birthdays to spend. So of course I'm gonna like spend on birthdays. I mean, these are my people. I have to give them gifts. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting me on this journey, and I will see you all next time. Bye.